but having a coach,
Mm-hmm.
having maybe a spiritual practice,
Mm-hmm.
having something to keep you grounded
Mm-hmm.
is important.
So what spiritual practices are you involved with? Like, what are you doing?
Well,
Have you tried ayahuasca?
that's on my list.
Okay.
That's on my bucket
All
list.
right.
Absolutely.
It's everything as advertised and then some.
Yeah.
We'll get you down to Colombia and get you
Yes.
something real raw and organic.
I'm great.
I'm going
Great.
again in December. Did it in June.
I
Going
definitely
again in
want to do
December.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's definitely on my list. I believe in it, even though I haven't done it yet.
It's plant medicine, man. Yeah.
The I meditate. What's interesting about spirituality is it's hard to describe. A lot of times it's really hard to describe, but I just know what I do and it works.
Mm-hmm. Have you done anything herbal wise? Mushrooms? Have you anything that you help, like a psychedelic that
what
takes
might
you
be
there?
helpful is to figure out my spiritual path, which is you have to wake up at some point.
Okay.
And for me, the wake up was the divorce
Mm-hmm.
and the aftermath of that.
Okay.
And having to really deal with the pain that I had put other people through,
Mm-hmm.
based on my decisions, and own them.
Okay.
Hey, I created all this, and I created this quote great life, and then I tore it all apart.
Mm-hmm.
Based on my decisions. There's a
Sometimes
funny,
it's needed,
story.
though, John.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I say, I now help coach people through this,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be a divorce because that's just my story. There's
Mm-hmm.
other ways you can go through this process.
Yeah.
But most people are generally happy not going through it.
Yeah.
But they're generally happy.
Yeah.
And they're probably, they may not be healthy. They may be great healthy. They're not, but they're generally happy. If you want to, it gets a little heady, but if you want to kind of wake up, and like a lot of people talk about the movie The Matrix.
Yep.
It's like something has to wake you up. And for me, that process was, I remember this is kind of a funny story. Talking about real estate. Do we have time?
Of course. Yeah. We're good.
So, after I divorced, I ended up renting a house. So you know how sometimes when you're unsettled, you go back to whatever you might consider home, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so we had to sell the 5 acres and the horses, and I had to look at my daughter in the eye and tell her we're selling her horse because we couldn't afford it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It was so many tough moments. And I'd ended up, through circumstances, there was a house for rent in my old neighborhood. The house that we owned before we went and bought the 5 acres in Cedar Park.
Okay.
And, it's funny because before we bought the 5 acres, and basically I was, like you said, we were actually pretty generally happy, but I had to have more, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at that house, before we sold it, we had like 50% equity in it. We were on a 15-year mortgage. We were on track to be the, paid off.
Yep.
And then we went and bought the 5 acres and blew a bunch of money and got a divorce. It's like funny. So I rented the house next door to that house. So I used to own the house next door. I'm renting the house
where
next
y'all
door.
had lived.
Yes.
So it brought back a lot of memories. It was maybe in a way you not wanting to let go of.
It was so interesting how it happened. The bedroom of the house I rented was on the corner of the house that faced the house I previously owned.
Mm-hmm.
And my bed, when I was laying on my pillow at night, looking out the window, I would look into the kitchen, and there's a ceiling fan that I had hung in the kitchen of the next door neighbor's house that I used to own.
Okay.
So I'm laying in bed,
that's where you lived with your wife.
Divorced. At the time, I had a lot of guilt about the divorce because I was the breadwinner, and she was going to have to now sort of start over.
Yep.
That I had given her. We didn't have a lot of wealth, but I gave her everything we had.
Yep.
I took on all the debt that we had, and I had agreed to and this isn't tooting my horn, it's just what I did, but I agreed to a level of spousal support that was, I didn't even know how I was going to pay for it.
Right.
But I figured it out. But my attorney was even like, are you sure you want to pay it? I was like, I just had so much guilt about it.
Okay.
Knowing, so I'm laying in bed with no money, tons of debt.
This is 17.
And I'm looking out the window at the house I used to own next door.
This is
and
5
I'm
years
in a
ago,
rental
man.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is only,
yeah.
And there were, laying in that bed at night and dealing with that, there were nights I wasn't really ever suicidal, but I thought about it. I thought, well, that might, maybe this, crying. And then sometimes I was laughing.
Did you have life insurance? Was
yeah,
that part of the,
yeah.
you're like, okay, I can kill myself. My girls will get $1 million or whatever it is.
Yeah.
She'll get, okay.
Yeah. And I never got super close, but I at least considered it.
Okay.
And sometimes I was just laughing hysterically at the situation. It just all these emotions. And that process allowed me to do with the help of a coach, and the type
Which
of
I
coach
love that
I
you
have.
keep coming back to that.
Yeah.
Right. I think that there's a tremendous amount of value in me hearing this from you, even you verbalizing it for yourself, that just continues to validate the importance of having somebody, whether it's a life coach or a mentor in their lives, helping give them direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And reminding of who they are,
Yeah.
whatever that means, right? I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of these things, it's like, what does that mean? Well, you have to go through it, I think, sometimes. But what he helped coach me through was realizing that part of what I was letting go of is the idyllic, like these roles I had for myself
Mm-hmm.
of being a father, of being a breadwinner, of being successful, of being a son, being like, I went through a process where I let go of all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to the, like, who is John?
Mm-hmm. Got to the
And
core
what
of who
does
you are.
John
Yeah.
want? Not what is the 13-year-old
Yeah.
who observed his parents run out of money and was trying to be better than them.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of that. Like,
Okay.
sometimes people call it completing the past, but it's
Okay.
like, I got to the point of, I'm laying in bed here, I'm 43, I'm basically at nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing. I'm on the edge of bankruptcy,
Mm-hmm.
and just not caring.
Mm-hmm.
And some people might call it a hitting bottom.
Okay.
Some people, this happens, they get hit by a bus.
Okay.
Or they lose a leg.
Yeah.
Or they go through cancer.
Right.
So there's different ways that this process can happen for you, or they're somebody close to them dies.
Yep.
But for me, this was my process.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got to that point where I had nothing out, I just saw myself as like, just, shed all those identities.
Mm-hmm.
I started to be able to go, okay, instead of making decisions based on fear, what do I want? Like, there's nothing else I could really lose at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So what do I want?
Okay.
And
what was it?
And what I got
was there
to
an aha moment?
and I was even ready to leave the mortgage business.
Okay.
I was ready to be the guy that was anti-mortgage, as weird as that sounds.
Okay.
I started going, okay, mortgage is from the Latin word, is actually death pledge.
Okay.
And I'm like, what's a death pledge? I'm helping people get, it was bizarre where my head went with some of this stuff.
Well, when you go through a divorce and transition, like your head will go.
I was going to do a podcast about how to, I was going to be like the next, what is the guy that helps people get out of debt?
Dave Ramsey?
I was going to be like the next Dave Ramsey talking about how people pay their mortgage off instead of getting a mortgage. It was the weirdest thing. I was going through.
You had made that decision after you were like completely broke and bankrupt at the
I had
time,
even
right?
said, I'm letting go of being a mortgage guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it up and be like, but what it allowed me to do is realize, hey, I actually really like the people part of the mortgage business. I fell in love with the mortgage business.
Okay.
And I started doing it because I loved it again.